yeah. Okay, we're back on the air. Quick break for commercials. Got to do that, guys, because that's part of the beautiful part of free radio, right? You don't have to pay for it, but you do have to listen to an occasional commercial now. That's just part of the game. But you don't have to pay for it like you do with cable. You don't have to pay for it like you do with the internet. All you got to do is listen. It's free. Your cost? A couple seconds of your time for some commercials. Okay, let me remind you, by the way, that Battery Station is the sponsor, before we get into this segment, which is going to be the FCC and why they need monitors in our newsrooms. The Battery Station and America's Voice Now have created a cooperative for bulk food purchasing. And if you're new to this program or you're new to the idea that we have this program where you can purchase bulk wholesale food at wholesale prices, right? And you can save like up to 50% on your food bill. You can buy a 50-pound bag of oatmeal or rice or wheat or flour or sugar or salt. 25-pound bags too. So you're not, if you're just two people or three people, even if you don't think you need 50 pounds, there's smaller bags available. The idea is that when you buy this food in bulk, you're preparing yourself and your family for long-term emergencies. Even if you're not preparing for a long-term emergency and you think I'm completely off the ball and that there's really no reason to prepare or be a prepper, quote unquote, right? If you don't want to be labeled that way, just think of it this way. You buy a 50-pound bag of rice and you don't have to go visit and pay retail prices at the store for quite a long time. And we all know that the price of food and inflation is eating up the American food dollar, shall we say. And so there's the perfect opportunity for you to take advantage of that. Now, you've only got, I think Kevin told me it was next Monday, if I'm not mistaken, was the final. And so that means that you've only got a couple days now to get in there. And let me just tell you, I'm looking through my NSA personal tracking device here for the text message. And next Wednesday is the order cutoff date. Next Wednesday. So you've got basically 1 week to get your act together. So what you do is you go into Battery Station at 303 Washington Avenue, and you say, I would like to see the America's Voice co-op catalog, please. You'll be doing two things there. One, you'll be saving yourself a bunch of money with whatever you buy there. And two, you'll be telling them, I heard about your location on America's Voice Now. How cool is that? So you go in and you pull this catalog and you go through it, and it pretty clearly states whether it's a 20-pound or a 50-pound or a 25-pound or a 10-pound bag, and you order what you want. There's no frozen items available. It's all just dry goods. And in a couple of weeks, you'll get a call from Kevin, and he'll say, come and get your stuff. And he means it, because if you've ever been to the Battery Station, he's got that place so cram-packed with stuff that when that food order comes in, he doesn't have a lot of room to store it. I mean, I've walked down the hallway and seen bags stacked all the way up to the ceiling of rice and grain and wheat and sugar and flour and things like that. So we ask that you promptly come get your stuff. He may ask you for a small deposit, but most of the time, I mean, unless you're placing a major order, he's probably just going to ask you to pay some token deposit and make sure that you come and get it in a timely fashion and pay for it then. So don't miss it. Next Wednesday, that's the cutoff. For the record, by the way, today is Thursday, and tonight, if you have an opportunity to, the Campaign for Liberty Libertarian Group is going to be meeting over at Skillets in West Plains. Please make sure that you swing by there. If you'd like to hear Sean Rhodes, he's the state representative for that district, or for this district, I should say. And we're going to be questioning Sean and hearing what he has to say about some of the things that are happening in Congress, including updates on the Second Amendment Preservation Act, of course, other bills that are currently in the House. I have some questions related to what's going on with the impeachment of the governor, because that's a bill that's been out there floated, and, well, I'm kind of curious as to who's on board. And then there's some other stuff that we're going to talk about as well. So, if you have an opportunity to, you can go by Skillets tonight And that, you can go by at 6, but the meeting actually begins at 7. But that way you can get yourself a quick dinner, and you're good to go. They'll meet in the back room. Okay, so let's get into the FCC, because this really bothers me. What they announced the other day is that the American Center in Law for Law and Justice broke this, actually, and what the Obama administration and the FCC within there, which is another, by the way, unconstitutionally organized, created, and funded federal agency that has no constitutional authority to exist, that same group is planning on doing something called a rulemaking. Now, a rulemaking is interesting because basically what it does is it passes law that you get an opportunity to publicly comment on. And of course, they don't have the right to pass law. They don't have any authority to pass law, but they do it all the time. I mean, 1,700 pages of new laws in the last Federal Register. Congress didn't pass a single one of them. But anyway, that's a topic for a whole nother show. In this case, what they plan on doing is putting government monitors in newsrooms. Wow. Now, the part about this that really bothers me is that it's interesting that a couple of months ago, I exposed the idea and the concept, and it was picked up by WorldNet Daily and a few others. In fact, WorldNet Daily had a front-page article on it, including the whole video clip, that whole 30-minute segment that I did on the radio. I thought that was pretty cool. Joseph Farah there did that. And that particular video got an awful lot of views. And basically, it said that the title of that was Obama Takes Over the Media, because what he did was, under a Federal Register rule change, kind of coincidental, huh? He determined that they were going to stop honoring and adhering to a rule and a law, which was passed back in 1947, called the Smith-Mundt Act. And what that act did is it barred the United States government from injecting propaganda, and use the word propaganda, into the American news dissertation. In other words, the idea was that propaganda can be so dangerous when in the hands of a tyrannical government, such as the one we currently have, that the idea was that you cannot have a government that can have propagandic access to the media. And so the whole premise is government should stay out of media, because media is supposed to be a watchdog, not a lapdog. Well, their idea is they want to put media monitors. And I mean, does the word Pravda come to mind? I mean, it does to me, right? Do we want every newspaper and every television news organization that's already not on the side of the administration to have a news monitor in there who says, well, listen, I know you want to talk about this story about some scandal breaking or Obamacare's failure or the fact that the NSA is monitoring and spying on Americans again. But what we really want to do is we want to talk about this other story about how successful Obamacare's been and the fact that we signed up 3.3 million people. And wow, isn't that great? That's the story you're going to push. That's the lead story for the day. The FCC says they want to gather, quote, information from television and radio broadcasters to ascertain the process by which stories are selected, station priorities for content production quality and population served, the perceived station bias, the perceived percent of news dedicated to each of the 8 CINs, and perceived responsiveness to underserved populations. Wow! I mean, thank goodness that Obama the tyrant is giving us the blanket opportunity to serve those underserved populations. I mean, there's more news and alternative news media out there in the world today between the internet and television and radio than we've ever had in all of human known history. But Obama's going to race in and on his steed which is hardly white. He's going to save the day. And he's going to serve those underserved populations with fair and balanced news. Unbelievable. Just absolutely stunning. Meanwhile, they got their hand caught in the cookie jar not so long ago, where the Department of Justice was violating the Constitution by monitoring the Associated Press's phone records and, I might add, the Fox News guy, what was his name, Rosen? And as if that wasn't bad enough, they wanted to make sure they didn't miss anything, so they monitored the parents' phone records just in case he made a call from mom and dad's house. Well, Wow. What do you guys think of that idea? I mean, shouldn't we allow the FCC to inject a little politics into the politics? I mean, I can just imagine the 2016 presidential election. You know, this negative story about Hillary and her past indiscretions and the Benghazi lead story you guys want to go with, we really don't think that's appropriate. We would rather see something going on here about, like, Kim Kardashian, perhaps. Or maybe this puff piece about how Hillary is really for women. I don't think, for the record, by the way, that there is a bigger misogynist in the woman's category than perhaps Hillary Clinton. But that's a topic for a whole nother day. This proposal is so blatantly abusive of the right of a free press, the right of free speech, because, I mean, I just want you guys to have this mental picture for a minute. Imagine this, that instead of this screen that is over my shoulder here, that's actually an FCC monitor. And just imagine how we would get on. You guys would have like a front row seat to the Thriller in Manila every day. I mean, he and I would be at fisticuffs before, I don't know, 8:15? This formula that they've decided to interject on the American public is fairly interesting. This FCC commissioner has exposed this thing, and here's what he says. The program is, quote, about pressuring media organizations into covering certain stories. Now, this is what the FCC originally tried under a different cover name. That was originally, they wanted to do this thing they called the Fairness Doctrine, which is about as Ayn Randian a name as you can conjure up. I mean, if you've ever read Atlas Shrugged, she has the corner on coming up with Orwellian and political doublespeak names, right? And the Fairness Doctrine group from the federal government is the height of irony and what one would typically refer to as an oxymoron. Anyway, here's what he has to say. His name is Pai, P-A-I, Ajit Pai. That's right. The Obama administration has developed a formula of what it believes the free press should cover, and it's going to send government monitors into newsrooms across America to stand over the shoulders. And I'm sorry, and this was not Pai saying this. This was a different. This was Matthew Clark. He says to stand over the shoulders of the press as they make editorial decisions. Now, this is from the ACLJ. It's Matthew Clark who made that statement. I apologize. I don't want to attribute that to Pai because he's actually promoting for it. Here's the problem. America already recognizes that the mainstream ministry of propaganda, a.k.a. the mainstream media, has already betrayed us and doesn't do their job as watchdog now. We know that organizations such as MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and sometimes faux news, are often sitting in the lap of this administration. They neglect to cover stories they should, like the TPP. I mean, this is only another trade treaty that's going to turn the sovereignty of America over to international tribunals to rule on the most amazing things. And Fox is dead silent. But moreover, we already know that only about 23% of the country trust television news. So why would we want to lower that even further? I guess the reality of this whole thing is simply this. We are consistently and continuously seeing pressure and frontal attacks on all sides. There was a guy who is probably the most famous Marine. His name was Chesty Puller. And at one point in time, he was a bulldog. I mean, just the meanest blanker on the planet. And at one point in time, he was out there in the field, and he had his men with him, and he was completely surrounded by the enemy, and he was asked for a situation report. He picked up his radio, and he said, "Sir, we're completely surrounded on all sides. The good news is we can attack in any direction." We have them right where we want them. I gotta love that. That's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. We're surrounded on all sides, and we can attack in any direction. We may not quite have them right where we want them. I think that was a little optimistic. But he did live through that particular event. That's a true story, by the way. And what bothers me about this whole thing is that most of America will never actually know that they're doing this. Because even the mainstream media that's required to be covered by this is not going to talk about it very much. I mean, they had it on Fox the other night, I will admit that. But they really don't have it on most of the other channels. And there was a kind of an interesting story out there the other day about a CNN reporter who was in Venezuela. And he reported that the Venezuelan cops actually confiscated their equipment at gunpoint. I mean, here they were trying to cover this, thing that's going on in Venezuela. And here's what he says. He says, quote, "The men on motorcycles rounded on us, and the next thing I knew, I was staring down the barrel of a chrome-plated 9mm pistol, and 3 armed men then proceeded to rob our crew of all the camera gear and all the transition gear as well." He later learned that they were plainclothes cops. Well, welcome to the future of news. Because, you see, what we already have is a police state. And what we already have is basically a situation where there is no honest media broker left in the nation, except alternative media sites. That's why I encourage you guys to go to places like CNS News. That's Charlie November Sierra News. CNS News. I encourage you to go to places that I ordinarily go and pull up articles all the time. The Free Beacon is a perfect example. The Washington Times, although sometimes they're questionable. Now, I find articles all over the place. But WorldNet Daily, WND.com. These are organizations that are actually doing a pretty good job of telling the truth. But they don't have mainstream status. Breitbart's another good example. Freedom Outpost. It's another good one. The truth is that the cards are stacked against us. And because most of these news organizations are not actually going to go out there and tell the news. I mean, if they really intended to tell the news and tell the truth, then why is it that when Edward Snowden did a half-hour interview a couple of weeks ago, it was blacked out by the entire news media, including Fox News. Sorry. Whoops. Nobody played it. Why is that? I mean, Edward Snowden has got to be one of the biggest stories of the year, if not the biggest. They're also generally not playing this overclassification video that he put out recently. He warned that overclassification of everything, in other words, this goes back to my point that the Obama administration, under them, everything is a secret, right? And that overclassifying information so that everything is a secret is a danger to democracy. Actually, for the record, I disagree with the word danger. At the present moment, we don't have a democracy. We have no republic, and we have no future hope of returning to the guarantee of either of those nouns, short of a complete replacement of the entire federal government that sends a strong message to state governments that they could fall underneath the same fate. We are doomed to an ever-degrading police state that ends with bloodshed in our streets and a totalitarian destruction of the America that you thought you knew. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real purpose of news media monitors. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how DHS has canceled the license plate database that I guess kind of alerted some of the patriots out there in the country. But simultaneously, they put out a bid for another 700 million rounds. I suspect maybe there was a budget crunch and they just couldn't afford both. Think that might have been it? It's possible. I mean, you never know, right? All right, we're going to take a break.